Hey guys, thanks for watching Weddings by CLED. Today we are coming at you from our floral design studio. Weddings are back on track for 2021 and we could not be happier. We provide full service planning as well as full floral design and event design. Brides, some of you are very ambitious and you want to try to do your own flowers. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what happens behind the scenes and how we compose a bouquet. For those of you who are aspiring event designers, you might want to watch this too. Hopefully you can learn something from me, and in the comments, maybe I can learn something from you. So today I'm going to take you through the process because the flowers don't just arrive like this, you guys. I did a lot of prepping to get to this place just so we can start designing. Typically, on the week of a wedding, our flowers come in on Monday, and that's the Monday before the wedding. So we have 5 full days to process and hydrate and manipulate, and yes, we even talk to the flowers to make sure they are at their finest when it comes to the wedding day, and that they last throughout the day and maybe beyond. Some people like to take their flowers home, and it's all about the processing. That's the way to make flowers last long. So come on into the cooler. I'm going to show you where it all begins. Brrr! When flowers arrive, they come in boxes that look like this. And this box will have literally like 5 or 6 bunches of roses in it, or 30 hydrangea, and they're packed tight together. Most of them have traveled from Ecuador or California, what have you. And so those all have to be unloaded, unboxed, and then everything gets processed and goes into the cooler. So every single one of these blooms, I think we have about 500 actual roses in the wedding amongst other flowers this week. Every single one was separately stripped with the rose stripper of all of the thorns, because we obviously don't want to have thorns when we're holding bouquets or designing with them. And then we also have to remove these guard petals on every single rose. That's what protects them during travel and during design, but that's also going to help them open. So, you know, that took a while. You know, they all came in on Monday, and some of the flowers we keep in their boxes, like the orchids over there. They don't need to be manipulated in any way until we open them up. The hydrangeas need a lot of water. They're very thirsty. They come in, they came up very kind of closed up, and they've opened and they look beautiful. And these roses and other flowers are still continuing to open. So this process happens all throughout the week of the wedding. Today is Wednesday, so tomorrow is Thursday, and we're really going to get down and start our design tomorrow. So everything is ready for Saturday. Brr, it's freezing in there. You know, in the middle of summer though, we love going in the floral cooler. So today we're doing a spring bouquet. It's April, and it's my favorite time of year for flowers because there are so many great blooms out in April. Early spring, late winter is when we get peonies. They are fragrant and lush and fat and beautiful. They're going in our bride's bouquet today. We have some gorgeous sweet peas in a little bit of a darker pink that we're going to be adding in on the end. This is a stilby, and it's a very feathery textural flower that I love using, just little pops of it. It gives a bouquet what I like to call peaks and valleys and a lot of texture. And of course, I know you know what these are. Roses, these are white O'Hara garden roses. If you could smell these, you guys, they are dreamy. I just love them. And then I may play with a little bit of this. It's called rice flower. And I saw it when I was at market, and I loved the color and the texture that it has. So, you know, when I compose a bouquet, it's all a process. And we've been dealing with this client for about 18 months now. And the whole design process, it evolves. And they come to us with lots of pictures and talk to us about what their dreams are and what their visions are. And we put that together with what's gonna be the most plentiful and luscious in the season that their wedding's in, and what's gonna most evoke their personality and their style as a bride. I don't like to just follow trends. I like her to collect lots of pictures, and we look at those together and we compose something that is gonna be just personal and beautiful and customized just for her. I'm honored that these brides give us the honor of putting together these bouquets. I don't do all of the flowers myself. I have a design team. I wish I could, because it's my favorite thing, but we've got so many things going on in our company that we've got teams for everything, and we have an amazing design team. But I am going to compose this bouquet today, and I hope you enjoy it. So when we put together a bouquet, I go by how I feel. I go by what it's all about: balance and structure and texture. Texture is so important. I put my bouquet together. Sometimes I take things out as I go. So it's a very intimate process for me. But there are certain mechanics that I think make sense and that I like to use. Everybody's got different ways of doing this, and there's no right way or wrong way. The most important aspects are to make sure that it looks good and that it stays together, and that most importantly, the bride loves it. And something that I always do is I send a picture to my brides, and like the day before or the morning of the wedding, and I show them the bouquet, and that way they have the opportunity. They almost always say, "Oh my gosh, it's beautiful." But sometimes they may say, "You know what? Could you take out a little bit of the greenery? Or could you add in a little bit of this?" And that gives us time to make those adjustments before the wedding begins. And for some of you DIYers, maybe you'll learn a little bit about putting together a bouquet. And this is something that you want to start. I would say if you're a DIYer, make sure that you have a cold place where you could store your bouquets, because this is not something you want to do on the morning of the wedding or the day before. That's when we do it, okay? Because we're equipped to do that. But if you're a bride, you're getting your hair done and you're getting ready for your wedding the day before. So you want to have a place where you can store it. We obviously have our cooler, but if you have a refrigerator in a garage or something, preferably without any food in it, because flowers can spoil when they're around certain foods. And also the temperature of most refrigerators don't accommodate floral. So you want to make sure that it's turned to about 38 degrees, 40 degrees, because if it gets below a certain temperature, yes, flowers can freeze, and when flowers freeze, they turn black. When I start my bouquets, and a lot of people don't do it this way, but I always start with a hydrangea. And even if you don't want to, some people love hydrangeas showing in their bouquets. This one's not going to have a lot of hydrangeas showing, but I like using it as sort of a self-natural grid. It gives me a little something to sort of hold my flowers into. Now, some people start their greenery on their own. They just put they just gather the greenery together in their hands. And I do that sometimes, but I like having the extra security of having that hydrangea in there, because it gives me a little bit of control. Now, as you can see, I start with greenery. I have this very wispy willow greenery. Now, I get my flowers, of course, through a wholesaler. Typically, only businesses can do that, but there are places online where you can go. I think 50flowers.com is one of them, where you can go and order flowers for your bouquets. And I showed you a little bit earlier, typically how they arrive and the ways that you have to process them. And that should be done, like I said, at least the Monday before the wedding, or maybe the Friday if you have a good place to store all of the flowers that are being processed. So as I go, I just kind of move around. I want to make sure that it's balanced all the way around, and that there's greenery framing the bouquet. Greenery is really big right now. It's very on trend. This bride doesn't want a lot, so I'm gonna take it a little light on the greenery. And as I cut off these little limbs, I do a little bit of pruning so that I don't have a lot hanging out. So let me tell you what, a lot ends up on the cutting room floor, but we just keep going around in a circle and we keep balancing. And a lot of times I'll walk over to my mirror over there and I'll just check as I go. This is a little bit of a more substantial, heavier greenery. It's called, we call it pit, it's called Pittosporum. And this is a variegated style of this greenery. I'm gonna add a little bit of this in here, and I broke that stem, and that happens all the time. But I also wanna make sure that I'm stripping my stems as I go. I do it with my hands, but you can also use your little rose stripper and just strip that stem, because somebody's gonna be holding this, and you wanna make sure that there's not much, you know, greens or leaves down on the stem that they're gonna be holding onto. We form a nice base. Here's a nice long one. I'm gonna get rid of like that much. I'm gonna strip it a little bit, and of course we're gonna clip it towards the end, but again, you wanna make sure that you have a nice, clean handle. And of course that's gonna get wrapped with ribbon, but that's at the very end. So, okay, so we're gonna add more greenery as we go, but that is a little bit of a base. That's a good size. I don't like humongous bouquets. My bride's very petite this week, so I'm gonna keep it on the smaller side. If a bride absolutely wants a massive bouquet, I will make it for her, but it's important to me that we see the bride and that we see her dress. You don't want all that covered. So we have a selection of floral today that I walked you through a little bit. Now, typically what I do is I start with what I call the star of the show. Typically I start with the larger, fatter florals. And in this case, that's our peonies. Now, flowers are natural items. They don't always point in the direction that you want them to point. Like this guy's on a little bit of an angle. So I'm gonna find one that's a little bit more straight up. And I'm gonna find a really pretty one. And they're all beautiful, but some are a little more beautiful than others. And I'm gonna put that a little lower down, and I'm gonna go into my hydrangea with it, because that's gonna give me a little bit of control. And I'm gonna actually move it up. I'm gonna move it a little bit more towards the center, because we have a lot going on around it. So, and what I do is I stick it in the center, and then I look at where that stem is, and I pull it through. And that is our first peony in there, okay? And then I'm gonna take some of my textural floral. This is like, what do you call? This is called a stilby. This flower is called a stilby. You wanna have a little height going on for balance. You wanna have a little height. So I let a little bit of the astilbe, which is really feathery and textural, kind of hang out on the sides a little bit. I bring it in with the greenery. I may actually bring that one a little bit lower down. And that's kind of coming out on the end, and that gives some color towards the base of the bouquet. Okay, so you can see we've got a little bit of a shape going here, and that's coming from the flowers that have a little bit more height. And the flowers that are gonna have more height are the ones that are more dainty and delicate, because you don't wanna have big, thick flowers at the top of the bouquet. You wanna keep it nice and balanced. So we're gonna add a little bit more still. I love this stuff, oh my gosh. And it's so plentiful in the spring. There's a little opening there. You wanna keep moving around and looking at where there are openings. So there's a little opening right here. We call them holes. And we're gonna fill that in with the astilbe, because that does a nice job. Now, also another thing that I do is I put flowers in different stages of development in our bouquets. So we've got that nice open peony right there that we started out with, but I think I'm gonna put a closed bulb, and I think peony bulbs are just as beautiful as open peonies. So I'm gonna stick that back here and pull it through. And that, you know, adds a little bit of interest, a little bit of texture to the bouquet. Now I'm going to grab these amazingly gorgeous white O'Hara roses. As you know, I have clipped these earlier, but they arrive with guard petals on them, and the guard petals actually protect the rose while it's processing, while it's traveling, but we don't need the guard petals anymore when we're ready to design them into the bouquet. And this rose is gonna open even more. When we finish designing this bouquet, we're gonna put it back in water and it's gonna keep developing. So by the time the wedding comes, it is going to be absolutely gorgeous. And oh my gosh, these smell so good. And I know y'all down south say peonies, but I say peony. You say peony. Let's call the whole thing off. So we've got a couple of those gorgeous roses in there now. I'm gonna put another one up here and pull that through. And this is a little bit of a looser bride's bouquet. It's a little loose, it's romantic, you know, it's not as structured as you see sometimes. So we're gonna balance out with more roses here. And I'm just gonna add them with my guard petals for time's sake. And another rose over there. And I don't have my mirror in front of me, so looks good from up here. But, so it's just a matter of moving around and keep building. Now I also have some spray roses over here, and these add a little bit more texture. Here again, I'm gonna do a little stripping because it's just a little too heavy for me, and it's just a smaller rose. And these can kind of just pop out here and there. I'm gonna put it right in this little hole right here, pull it down and through, and there we've got just some little gorgeous little like popping roses. They're so pretty. I love spray roses because they're just tiny and beautiful, and they add so much interest to the bouquet. So I don't know, let's see what we think about the rice flower. You guys tell me what you think. It's got a gorgeous texture to it. Oh gosh, I love it. Okay, let's do it. This is it. This is the creative process. Now I usually have music blasting. This is art, and I have to be inspired by something. So depending on my mood, it could be about anything. So you know what? I think I'm gonna leave the rice flower in there because I really like the texture and just the difference in the way it looks and the way it feels and the texture of it compared to everything else. It's just, it's got a whole different look to it. Oh, and we're just gonna pull them down pretty tight. So when the photographer comes in close on that, oh my gosh, it's gonna be absolutely stunning. And let's just add another peony here. I think this bouquet wants a peony. We've got the one front and center. Let's add one that's kind of like right in the middle of its development, because we've got the developed one in the middle, and then we've got the closed little bud on the side. So let's add one right over there. And we got something going here, guys. So that's kind of how we build our bouquets. We do a lot of tweaking along the way. I'm gonna add some more greenery as I go, you know, just as this develops. And then the crowning touch on this bouquet is our very special sweet pea flower. Sweet pea is extremely fragile. It's extremely delicate, but it is so gorgeous. Sometimes I wait till I'm on site to add in sweet peas because they're so delicate and I just don't want them to get bruised or anything. But this is gonna add a very whimsical touch to the bouquet. Oh, they're so curly and pretty, and oh my gosh, I just love them so much. So I'm just gonna put them in here now so you can see where we're going with this. But they just add such a feminine, gorgeous touch to bouquets. And these are really only plentiful in the spring. Sometimes we can get our hands on them a little bit later in the year, but I absolutely love them. And I may do a little trimming of this stuff right here, just so that they don't steal the thunder from our little sweet peas. And that's, you know, that's just part of how it goes. I love where this is going. And I'll tell you guys, sometimes I am here until 2 o'clock in the morning, and I could go on and on and on. You know, we could keep adding some greenery to the collar of the bouquet. You know, it's all what feels good to you. I just walked over the mirror, and I'm happy with this. I think it's beautiful. It's got a lot of texture. It's got interest to it. It's got some beautiful flowers, and if you could know how it smells, oh my gosh. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna secure it. It's called Oasis tape, and I get it at my floral wholesaler market, but I believe that you can find these in different floral supply stores, probably craft stores like Michael's, and I'm sure you can get it at Amazon. So that's what I use to secure my bouquets with, because they stay together really well. And I just wrap it around like this. Some people use wire, covered wire, but I use tape because that's what I use. And so, voila, there we go. I hope my bride likes it. We'll take a picture later. But before that, we of course have to tie it up with some ribbon. So let me grab some ribbon. For this wedding, we're gonna use this stunning mauve velvet ribbon that I picked up at the flower market in New York. And so what I typically do is just roll it out to about the entire length of my design table, because I like a nice long ribbon to wrap my bouquets with. And this bride wants it very organic and beautiful, so what I'm gonna do is once I'm finished tying it with the ribbon, I'm gonna leave most of the stems exposed. I'm gonna let them fan out a little bit like that, but I lay my bouquet on top of the ribbon, and I just wrap it around once and then twice. You want to make sure that the velvet is up, and I actually don't do fancy bows. It's not about, the bow. So I just do a really pretty love knot like that, and then I let the streamers stream down, and there we go. Well, you guys, thanks for watching Weddings by CLED. This was one of the funnest episodes I've done because this is my heart, this is my passion, and this is one of my favorite places to be. I absolutely love designing flowers, and like I say, they are the life of a wedding. They're the life, truly the life of an event. So I hope if you're a bride, I hope you learned a little bit about designing flowers if you want to do it on your own. If you're an aspiring event designer, I hope that I have inspired you in some way. I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. As always, please subscribe, you guys, and thank you for watching Weddings by CLED.